The courtroom was silent. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of anticipation. The kind that settles before truth collides with denial. Every seat was filled. Reporters clutched notepads. Fans lined the back rows, their faces tense, eager, unsettled. The Browns, once a reality television family, now sat divided in the harsh light of a courtroom. On one side, Christine and Janelle, their attorneys stacked with files, binders, and exhibits. Their strength wasn't loud, but it was visible, steady, unshaken, years in the making. On the other, Cody and Robin, sitting side by side. His posture was rigid, his jaw clenched, his glare fixed. Her tissues were already in hand, her eyes red, her body trembling with visible emotion. Between them, as always, was Mary present, but absent. A ghost within the story, her silence as heavy as the evidence waiting to be revealed. The judge's gavel cracked. This court is now in session. And with those words, the stage was set. Every lie, every tear, every dollar was about to be examined. Not through the lens of reality television, but through the scrutiny of the law. The attorneys open with words that frame the Browns' empire. Was it a story of survival, or a web of deception? The prosecutor rose first, adjusting their jacket before facing the jury. Their voice was steady, deliberate. Ladies and gentlemen, you've seen the Browns on television. You've seen the smiles, the sacrifices, the story of a family that claimed unity above all else. But today, you will see the truth. This case is not about polygamy. It is not about faith. It is not about reality television. It is about money. It is about power. And it is about betrayal. They stepped closer to the jury box, lifting a hand to emphasize each word. You will hear testimony from insiders who saw everything. You will see documents, bank transfers, tax filings, receipts. You will hear from counselors, from children, from people who lived inside the walls of the Brown household. And when you put it all together, one fact becomes undeniable. The Browns' empire was built on deception. The gallery murmured. Christine looked straight ahead, her face calm but resolute. Janelle's chin lifted slightly, her strength steady. The prosecutor nodded once. Every lie, every tear, every dollar, you will see them all. And when you do, the decision will be clear. They returned to their table. The defense rose next, walking deliberately before the jury. Their tone was softer, almost pleading. You've heard the word betrayal. You've heard deception. But families are complicated. Families fight. Families make mistakes. That does not mean fraud. That does not mean malice. Cody Brown is not perfect. Robin Brown is not perfect, but they are human. Humans who have tried to hold together a family larger than most of us can imagine, all while living under the microscope of television cameras and public opinion. They gestured toward Christine and Janelle. What you will hear are grievances, resentments, years of pain turned into accusations. But pain is not proof. Resentment is not evidence. We will show you that this case is not about fraud. It is about fractured relationships. Cody nodded firmly, his jaw set. Robin dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, tears streaking down her cheeks. The defense closed with quiet emphasis. Do not let this become a trial of imperfection. Let it be a trial of truth. The courtroom fell silent. Both sides had spoken. The jury now had the frame through which they would watch the trial unfold. The first witnesses take the stand, and the curtain begins to lift on the Browns' hidden world. The bailiff called the first name. A former financial consultant who had once worked with the Browns stepped forward. Calm, precise. They raised their hand, swore the oath, and took the stand. The prosecutor wasted no time. Did you have access to the financial records of the Brown family? Yes, the consultant replied. I was brought in to review expenses and help manage accounts when the family pot became strained. And what did you discover? Their voice was steady. Transfers. Consistent transfers from the shared family account into private accounts that bore only Cody and Robin's names. Thousands of dollars at a time. The jury scribbled, the gallery murmured. Christine and Janelle exchanged a glance, quiet but telling. The prosecutor lifted a document. Are these transfers reflected in the records you reviewed? Yes, They show a pattern stretching over several years. The defense objected speculation. The judge overruled. The witness may continue. The consultant leaned slightly toward the microphone. It wasn't speculation. It was a clear system. Money came in under the guise of a family fund, but it was consistently redirected. The words hung heavy. The next witness was a former crew member from the reality show. Their testimony brought a different perspective. I saw what happened when the cameras weren't rolling. Cody would assure Christine and Janelle that money was tight, but minutes later he'd step aside with Robin, talking about new purchases, things that were never discussed with the other wives. "And did you share this with production?" the prosecutor asked. "Yes, but not everything made it to air. The image of a united family was too valuable." The jury leaned in. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about image, about how deception had been broadcast to millions of viewers as entertainment. Christine sat still, her eyes glistening but proud. Janelle exhaled slowly, her strength visible in her silence. Mary lowered her gaze, unreadable as ever. Across the aisle, Cody shifted angrily, whispering harshly to his attorney. Robin dabbed furiously at her eyes, tissues piling in her lap. The curtain was lifting, and what lay behind it was not a family united, but a system fractured. The testimony shifts to emotional scars, counselors revealing the toll years of favoritism took on the wives and children. The prosecutor called the next witness, a family counselor who had worked with the Browns during some of their most turbulent years. The counselor raised their hand, swore the oath, and settled into the witness chair. Their demeanor was calm, clinical, but the weight of their testimony was anything but. "Can you describe what you observed in your sessions with the Browns?" The counselor folded their hands. There was a pattern. Christine frequently expressed feelings of neglect and invisibility. When she voiced her concerns, she was dismissed as jealous. Janelle often raised financial questions and was told she lacked faith. Meanwhile, Robin's concerns were always validated and prioritized. The imbalance was clear. The jury scribbled quickly. And what impact did this imbalance have on the family? In my professional opinion, it created long-term emotional harm. Christine and Janelle carried burdens of isolation and invalidation. The children absorbed the lesson that loyalty to Cody determined who mattered. That is not the foundation of a healthy family. That is conditional love. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Christine dabbed at her eyes. Janelle sat upright, resolute. Mary stared down at her hands, her silence as suffocating as the testimony itself. Across the aisle, Cody shook his head vigorously, whispering angrily to his attorney. Robin pressed a tissue to her face, her tears flowing openly. The defense rose quickly. "Isn't it true that all families struggle? That conflict is a normal part of relationships?" The counselor's reply was calm, but firm. "Conflict is normal." But this was not conflict. This was systemic, it was repeated, it was reinforced, and it was harmful. The word systemic echoed through the chamber. It was no longer about jealousy, no longer about isolated arguments. It was about a pattern too deliberate to ignore. The jury's expressions hardened. Pens scratched faster. What Christine and Janelle had endured wasn't just loneliness. It was damage. Damage that could not be dismissed as family growing pains. The prosecution calls the witness no one expected, the nanny, and her testimony exposes the financial truths that the jury cannot ignore. The bailiff's voice echoed through the courtroom. "Call Mindy Jessup to the stand." Heads turned instantly. For years, fans of Sister Wives had asked the same question: what does the nanny even do? Now, that answer was about to be revealed. Not on television, but under oath. Mindy walked to the witness stand, raised her hand, and swore the oath. She looked steady, calm, unshaken. The prosecutor began. "Miss Jessup, please describe your role in the Brown household." "I worked as a nanny for Cody and Robin Brown," she said clearly. "I managed childcare, errands, and household tasks." "And were you compensated for this role?" "Yes, I was paid $80,000 a year." The gallery gasped. Reporters scribbled furiously. Jurors exchanged glances. Christine and Janelle's attorneys allowed the number to linger in the air, heavy with implication. The prosecutor leaned forward. During your employment, did you observe anything unusual regarding the family finances? Mindy's eyes locked with the jury. Yes, I became aware of an LLC controlled only by Cody and Robin. Christine and Janelle were excluded from it. The gallery buzzed. The judge's gavel cracked. Order. But the silence that followed was heavier than the noise. Did you overhear conversations between Cody and Robin? Yes. They spoke often about protecting their own household, making sure they were secure. When it came to Christine and Janelle, the phrase I heard more than once was, "They'll have to make do." Christine's tears slipped silently. Janelle's arms folded tightly, her composure unbroken but fierce. Mary's gaze stayed low, her silence unshaken. Across the aisle, Cody flushed red, his jaw tight. Robin clutched her tissue, sobbing openly. The jury scribbled faster. The prosecutor's voice cut through the quiet. So, Miss Jessup, in your opinion, was this favoritism accidental? Her answer was sharp. Number, it was deliberate. And with those words, the nanny, once dismissed as a punchline, became the witness who pulled back the curtain. The defense cross-examines Mindy, but their attempt to discredit her only reinforces the truth of what she saw. The defense attorney rose slowly, their voice sharp, measured. They paced in front of the jury, eyes locked on Mindy Jessup. Miss Jessup, you were a nanny. You weren't a financial planner. You weren't an accountant. Isn't it true that you had no authority over the Browns' finances? Mindy nodded calmly. That's true. I had no authority, but I was present. I overheard conversations. I saw receipts. I made deposits at the bank. The attorney pressed harder. And you were compensated very well, were you not? Yes, Mindy replied. 80,000 a year. The defense pounced. So you benefited from this system. You were paid handsomely, and now you come here criticizing the very people who provided you that livelihood? Mindy's expression didn't waver. My salary doesn't erase the truth. What I saw was favoritism. What I heard was deliberate exclusion. I was paid, but that doesn't mean I was blind, the gallery murmured. The jury scribbled quickly. Christine dabbed her eyes. Janelle sat steady, her arms folded in silent support. Across the aisle, Cody's face flushed deeper. Robin whispered frantically to him, her voice breaking through sobs. The defense tried one last time. Isn't it possible that you misunderstood what you overheard? That what you saw was simply the stress of a large family, not deception? Mindy leaned forward, her voice sharper now. Number, it wasn't stress. It wasn't confusion. It was a pattern, consistent, repeated, intentional. It was favoritism. And it was deliberate. The jury's pens froze mid-sentence. They looked at her directly, their expressions hardened. The defense attorney faltered, shuffling papers before returning to their seat. Their cross-examination had not dismantled Mindy's testimony. It had solidified it. The prosecution presents the receipts, the financial records that prove Mindy's words in black and white. The prosecutor stood, a thick binder in hand. Their voice was steady but sharp. Your Honor, the state submits Exhibits N through T. The judge nodded, so admitted. Screens lit up. Numbers, dates, and signatures filled the courtroom. Exhibit N, bank transfers. Tens of thousands of dollars moved from the so-called family pot into accounts controlled solely by Cody and Robin. Each transfer circled, the dates aligned with key family disputes. Exhibit O, tax filings. The LLC Mindy had named, quietly registered, quietly operated. No mention of Christine. No mention of Janelle. Exhibit P, personal checks. A vacation to Disneyland, jewelry purchased from high-end boutiques, private school tuition, checks signed directly from the redirected accounts. Exhibit Q, handwritten notes, pages from Cody's own planner, with one phrase underlined twice, loyalty equals security. No loyalty equals no support. Gasps rippled through the gallery. The judge's gavel slammed down. Order. Christine's tears slipped freely, though her expression carried relief, proof, at last in black and white. Janelle leaned forward, her gaze sharp, her resolve vindicated. Mary stayed still, her silence suffocating. Across the aisle, Cody's face paled, his fists pressed into the table, knuckles white. Robin's sobs filled the air, tissues crushed in her trembling hands. The prosecutor's voice cut through the silence. These are not rumors. These are not opinions. These are records. They show a system where money flowed not equally, but selectively, where loyalty was rewarded, where dissent was punished. The jury scribbled, their pens racing. The evidence didn't just support Mindy's testimony, it cemented it. Paper trails don't cry. Paper trails don't misremember. Paper trails don't lie. The children take the stand, and the emotional impact of favoritism becomes undeniable. The bailiff called the next witness, and the air grew heavy. This wasn't an accountant or an insider. It was one of the Browns' own adult children. They walked slowly to the stand, raised their hand, swore to tell the truth, and sat down. The jury leaned forward, the gallery hushed. The prosecutor's tone was gentle. Can you describe what it was like growing up in the Brown household? The child hesitated, then spoke softly. We were told it was about family, about unity. But it didn't feel that way. Some moms mattered more, some kids mattered more. We all knew it. Even as children. The gallery murmured. The judge's gavel cracked once. Order, the prosecutor pressed gently. What do you mean? Some mattered more. The child swallowed hard. If you agreed with Dad, life was easier. If you questioned him, you were ignored. My mom was told there wasn't money for basic things, school, activities, support. But then we'd see vacations, private lessons, new gifts for Robin's kids. We noticed we just weren't allowed to talk about it. Christine wiped tears from her cheeks. Janelle's chin trembled, though she stayed composed. Mary lowered her gaze, her silence as thick as ever. Across the aisle, Cody sat rigid, his fists tight. Robin clutched her tissue, her sobs louder now. Another child testified later, their words even sharper. Love didn't feel unconditional. It felt like loyalty was the price you had to pay. If you weren't loyal, you were invisible. The jury's pens scratched furiously. Faces hardened, sympathy drained. The documents had shown money. The nanny had shown patterns. But the children, they showed pain. The kind of scars no bank statement could capture. Both sides deliver closing arguments, framing every lie, every tear, every dollar one last time before the jury decides. The judge's gavel cracked. We will now hear closing statements. The prosecutor rose first, their voice calm, deliberate, certain. Ladies and gentlemen, you've seen the evidence. You've heard the witnesses. You've listened to the children. This is not a story of faith. This is not a story of polygamy. It is a story of deception. Christine and Janelle were told again and again to sacrifice for the good of the family, while money flowed elsewhere. Their voices were silenced, their loyalty was tested, and their pain was dismissed. You've seen the receipts. You've heard the counselor describe the emotional scars. You've listened to the nanny reveal the favoritism. You've felt the children's words cut deeper than any document. This case is every lie told, every tear shed, every dollar diverted. And today, you decide if truth matters more than illusion. Christine's eyes glistened. Janelle nodded faintly. The jury scribbled. Then the defense rose. Their voice louder, sharper, almost pleading. What you've heard are grievances dressed up as evidence. All families fight. All families argue. All families make mistakes. That does not mean fraud. That does not mean malice. Cody Brown is not a criminal mastermind. He is a husband and father who struggled under pressures few of us could imagine, raising a massive family under the spotlight of reality television. Do not mistake imperfection for deception. Do not mistake resentment for proof. This is not about fraud. This is about family. Cody nodded firmly, his jaw set. Robin clutched her tissues, her tears flowing. The defense sat. Silence filled the chamber. The prosecutor rose one final time, their words sharp as steel. Family is built on trust, and trust was broken. That is the truth. The jury sat still, pens lowered, expressions grim. The arguments were over. The decision now belonged to them. The jury delivers its verdict. And every lie, every tear, every dollar comes crashing down. The jury filed back into the courtroom, their faces solemn, their steps heavy. The foreperson clutched a folded piece of paper, the verdict form. Christine's hands trembled in her lap, though her expression stayed steady. Janelle's arms crossed tightly. Her calm composure unbroken. Mary sat still. Her gaze fixed downward. Across the aisle, Cody stared straight ahead, jaw locked, fists clenched. Robin's tears never stopped, tissues crushed in her hand. The judge's voice rang out. "Members of the jury, have you reached a unanimous verdict?" "Yes, Your Honor." The paper was handed up. The judge unfolded it slowly, his expression unreadable. The gallery held its breath. "In the matter of Brown versus Brown, we, the jury, find in favor of the plaintiffs." The words struck like lightning. Gasps erupted. The gavel slammed. "Order," the judge continued. "We find that financial impropriety occurred. We find that emotional harm was inflicted. And we find that the allegations brought by Christine Brown and Janelle Brown are substantiated." Christine's tears flowed, relief etched across her face. Janelle's chin lifted, vindication steady in her eyes. Mary stayed silent, frozen in her stillness. Across the aisle, Cody slumped back, his face pale, the weight of years collapsing in an instant. Robin buried her face in tissues, her sobs echoing through the chamber. The judge set the paper aside. "The verdict is entered into record. Court is adjourned." The gavel cracked one final time. The Browns' empire, once sold as a story of unity and sacrifice, collapsed into silence. Not the silence of love, nor the silence of faith, but the silence that comes when every lie, every tear, every dollar is finally exposed. Headlines flooded the world outside. The verdict that ended the Browns. Every lie, every tear, every dollar revealed in court. From reality television to Judgment Day. Inside, there was no applause, no cameras, no confessions, just the sound of history closing the book on the Browns' empire, forever.